My sources can confirm that the Bojangles conversation is going to be a lot more interesting than what I'm going to tell you.
I disagree. The Bojangles conversation is certainly a nice little factoid that is added into the entire story of the greatness of the state of North Carolina. Way to go. Way to go, North Carolina. But let's talk about what you have been covering, and obviously alongside your peers at ESPN.com and other places, about this NCAA story. For the first time in NCAA's existence, there has now been an agreement for schools to be able to pay players, which leads to so many more questions. But is that the basis of what took place? And how far into this are we? And how does this end up? Because McGee did an entire speech literally at the beginning of the show saying, if our Saturdays start looking like our Sundays, then what is even Saturday football, and why am I even a fan of it? Which could potentially be SEC fans that are diehard college and other diehard college football fans thinking that. That's their biggest fear. This ruling seems to probably feed that a little bit. Is that where we are? What are your thoughts, and how did we get here, Pete? I'll kind of give you an open slate to kind of run with it.
Well, thanks, Pat. Amateurism is dead is the headline. Schools can now directly pay college athletes, which is a huge, huge development just for college athletics in general, and we can't overstate how important that is as a moment. Now, where this all goes, and the details, and who gets what, and is Title IX about, there is still, much like most things in college sports, it's convoluted and confusing. But I just think if, like, your listeners or viewers, obviously, are going to take one thing away today, Pat, it's that Ohio State, starting in 2025, can now pay Travion Henderson. Michigan can now pay Will Johnson, whoever. Now, they won't be there in 2025. But you know what I mean? Like, the star players in college football and college basketball can get paid directly by the school. In the years of sort of indirect payments, we had 3 years of NIL. We had many years of duffel bags full of cash. That stuff is
McDonald's
over.
bags?
Now,
Tennessee, go Vols. Yeah. Give me a McDonald's bag full of cash, please.
Give me a McCheese with double the check.
Our playbook's right out of the 1990s.
Between Saturday football, Bojangles, and a Tennessee bag of cash, it's really Ryan McGee Day today.
Every day could be McGee Day. Just would like to let you know we're having a great day here.
Put that in a Bojangles bag, and I'm good.
I'll take the shit out of that. Okay, so as we're talking about this all, there was a lawsuit that was prompting this, right? Is that kind of what I read?
Yes.
I was trying to follow as much as I could, but it was very wordy. All of it was wordy. You had 4 bylines yesterday on ESPN.com, McGee said, but there was a lawsuit coming that was worth billions of dollars. The NCAA had to counter it by passing this rule. What was that lawsuit? And is Pat White going to make money off of West Virginia this far removed from what he did to that potential university and others like him?
Yeah, Pat White will not, because it's 2016 and on, but Zach Frazier could make some money.
Exactly.
And, like Zion Williamson should make a lot of money, right? Like that guy, the folks like that. I think Johnny Manziel would fall within the window if it's 2016 on. Now, how that's actually going to get divided up could be its own podcast mini-series, 30 for 30. There are going to be people a lot smarter than me that are going to have to determine how you take $2.7+ billion, chop it up. The lawyers are going to make a lot of money. That we know. Jeffrey Kessler, who really has had his hand in most of the major, union type battles or labor type battles in professional sports over the past 4 or 5 decades. He and Berman, the other co-counsel in this, are going to walk out with a lot of money. But how that stuff gets divided up hasn't been determined yet. Nor, and I think this is the other probably crucial point right now as we look into it, is nor has schools said, okay, with this roughly $20 million, does $10 million go to women's sports because of Title IX, or can we take $18 million and direct that towards football, because football, and I think it's a safe estimate, Ryan could disagree with me here, is about 85% of the revenue at most schools proportional to the TV contracts. So, because that's just a giant difference if you're operating with an $18 million, which is essentially going to be a salary cap at a power school, versus $8 million, right? So these are the things that have to be determined. The other very football-centric piece of this that isn't determined is there are going to be roster caps. Now, I'm going to go in the weeds a little bit with you here. There used to be scholarship limits. Yep. So, they're weird numbers. So football at 85, that was clean, but baseball was 12,
11.8,
9.9.
Yep.
McGee might know some of those nuanced numbers better than me.
He does.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And so,
baby, you big dumb Southern hick.
Yeah.
Look at that, you got it. You got it.
Over here eating my chicken legs. Leave me alone.
And you're frog on a frying pan. Go ahead, though, Pete. Sorry about it.
So the sort of basic legal tenet of this is that because it's an antitrust suit, they're trying to eliminate limitations. So instead of telling Clemson they can only have 85 scholarship players in this, or like Ole Miss is a great example, or Mississippi State, they have unbelievable baseball, and they were limited to about 10 baseball scholarships. So now, if you want to give out 25 baseball scholarships, you can. There's simply just going to be a roster cap, and you can determine. Maryland may say, you know what, we only want 12 baseball scholarships. But Ole Miss is going to say, hey, man, we pack $5,000 a night, and everybody sits out in the outfield and drinks, and we get a good old time here. And baseball means a lot to our community and our fan base. We're going to have up to the roster cap as opposed to the scholarship limit. Now, what we don't know yet for football is what the roster cap. We know there are going to be roster caps. We don't know if the roster cap is going to be 95, if it's going to be 105, it's going to stay at 85. And there is a conversation. I don't think we're going to get there ultimately because it's too important to Saturday football. And I'm a believer in Saturday football. I've heard the McGee pep talk speech, and I'm a believer in Saturday football.
Yeah.
Walk-ons are a crucial part of Saturday football, correct, Ryan McGee?
Absolutely.
Good stories, for sure.
Who's your favorite walk-on, Ryan McGee?
Oh, your favorite walk-on of all time is Baker Mayfield, who walked on like 14 different times and won the Heisman Trophy.
Just got paid, too, again.
Shout out.
Your co-host, J.J. Watt, walk-on, right?
Yep.
Hunter Renfrow caught the winning. So, anyway, I
Owen
don't
Schmidt,
think we're
walk-on.
going.
Yeah.
Owen Schmidt, great walk-on, great call, Pat.
Yeah, thank you.
So
he was working at a club, actually, as a security guy. That's what he was doing.
Yeah.
He was.
I would not have misbehaved in that. So I think walk-ons are too important part of Saturday football for them to be eliminated, but there's going to have to be some type of mechanism to put them in because rosters are going to be capped at a certain number, and they may have to have practice squads, something different. So anyway, these are some of the changes that are coming. We just don't know the final answers yet.
Okay, last question for me before the boys have some here. So $20 million is what the school is allowed to give out. Now, are boosters still allowed to do the NIL thing? And then all of a sudden, whenever you talk about scholarships, like let's say I want to pay Boston Connor here $100,000, but we're going to take $25,000 of that, and that's going to allot for your schooling. So it's actually a scholarship, but it's not actually a scholarship. You're actually making $75,000. You're lucky to be getting it, kid.
Thank you. I'm very excited. Thank you. I remember hearing about that. Well, when I had 10 touchdowns this year, I won 175.
Oh, we'll talk about that after season. I'm sure you'll come in bitching like this entire generation does, and I'll have to re-recruit you and everything, but you're welcome for this. Can that happen as well? Are the boosters' money still going to be involved in the NIL entire deal, this entire thing, you think?
So because the fundamental tenets of antitrust in settling these things are to avoid future lawsuits, you can't just eliminate NIL. And it doesn't make sense to bring NIL in-house, or at least that's not what people think is going to happen. So in a way, how to manage NIL is probably the biggest issue that administrators have right now, because essentially, if you have, just say you have your $15 million salary cap for football, to use a round number, at your run-of-the-mill SEC school, your competitive advantage, potentially in a gray area, right? We're used to those for a few decades in college football, comes from NIL. And when you drill down on it, what they're trying to determine, Pat, is what is real NIL and what is like someone going to a charity event for 20 minutes, shaking a few hands, and then getting $100,000. Is that like indicative? So the NIL deal,
you are what they'll pay you.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's fair. So again, NCAA enforcement has been just about as impotent over the years as the NCAA has been in the courtroom, and that's how we got to this point. So having this historic day go forward without an answer for how NIL will be managed and how people are going to oversee it, there's a thought that maybe Judge Wilkin in Northern California has a federal magistrate that creates a bureau to oversee it, just like in the front offices of the NBA and NHL and NFL. There's ways to manage different tampering and things like that. But the NCAA is not
a Northern California judge is going to be overlooking.
Oh yeah.
Oh, college ball.
Hey, that's ACC territory up there, man.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That's right.
I completely forgot about that.
Got to get him a Bojangles, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So it sounds like there's obviously a lot of questions still. There's just an agreement like, yeah, you can pay $20 million at this point. Just kind of get this lawsuit off their ass. More questions are going to be coming, though. Here's one from McGee.
All right, so Pete, the texts that I'm receiving, and I know you are too, are from administrators at non-autonomous Power 5, Power 4, whatever the hell we're calling it now. But they are taking on a large part of paying off this settlement. What is your elevator explanation to people now when they didn't go to Ohio State and Notre Dame, but they went to Ball State or Coastal Carolina, and now they feel like they're having to pay 60% of this as opposed to the guys with the money who are having to pay 40% of it?
What's this all about, Pete?
So the NCAA is, and by the way, buying itself a decade of relevancy by doing this. They are volunteering to pick up the tab, but they're having basically everyone Venmo them. That would be the best way to describe it. But instead of Venmoing them, the NCAA gives an inordinate amount of money to these schools, more than I even knew when I drilled into this last week when everybody started to complain. And rightfully so, by the way. They're not baseless complaints. And so what happens is there's 9 different categories that the NCAA pays all these schools in, and 6 of them are now going to be limited. A lot of that we see manifested through NCAA tournament units, NCAA tournament performance fund, it's called. And essentially that stuff is going to be, some of that stuff is going to be pared back in order for that to happen. So there's like big numbers that, like, the Big East is going to pay $5.5 million to about $7 million per year, which translates down to $500,000 per school. But ultimately, what the NCAA will tell you is, look, if we don't all pick up the tab here, we're going to lose these lawsuits, fall apart, declare bankruptcy, and have to start all over. And
how many people are like, that's okay with us? Did anybody say that about the NCAA?
I think you'd get a lot of hands raised on your show for that. That would just be complicated and messy. So they're essentially paying billions, Pat, to avoid paying more billions and risk just sort of a shutdown. A shutdown and restart. And even everyone who's cynical about the NCAA, and they've given us plenty of reasons to be, does have to admit, like, whatever is recreated, there would need to be a governing body. Somebody would have to run all the championships but football. And so
the biggest issue here, hey, when you're talking about a governing body and recreating all that and all the impossible tasks that have to be completed with actual humans, in theory, all this shit sounds good. Just like in theory, a player union sounds good. But that is inevitable, right? Players are going to need to have a union at some point with this entire thing, especially if there's a rev share conversation taking place, and then you're negotiating what can be negotiated, what can't be negotiated. But a union for a turnstile, you're only there for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is. So that's going to be a whole different group. So who's going to be the person? A union in theory sounds easy to create, but that's going to be impossible as well. There's a lot of shit that has to get figured out before 2025 when this is instituted.
Yes. So kickoff, we're like 100 days from kickoff. I saw the tweets this week. So, yeah, we could say 460 days, right?
But to Pete's point, though, and people don't get this. The NCAA headquarters, which are sitting right down the road from where we are,
they're the worst.
But that has to exist. There has to be some form of that. And what no one understands is, I say this all the time, is that the NCAA, the people who are in that building, their job is to enforce the rules and regulations that were written by the membership. You go to the NCAA website and you look at every committee, and it's representatives from the schools. The people in this building down here, their only job is to enforce what in fact, when those committees meet, and my dad was on these committees, when these committees meet, NCAA executives have to sit outside. They're not even allowed to be in the room. So most of what happens in that building, the inmates are running the asylum. So some form of the NCAA will always exist because someone has to. Pete's right. The NCAA is bad at a lot of things. They're really, really good at running championships. Like, I'm going to the College World Series in a few weeks.
March Madness is awesome.
They're really good at that. Someone needs to do that. Someone needs to take care of the clerical stuff that the colleges, that the universities don't want to do, and someone has to be the scapegoat. You got to have someone to point to and go, well, that damn guy is the worst.